Then lastly we also discuss about lastly we also discuss about what is the difference between comparative politics and comparative government. Okay, so comparison is man's instinct tendency which implies him to appropriate his own conduct those of others. Okay, he is ever need to know how people around him live, behave, and act. Okay, the study of comparative politics is at the heart of contemporary political science. Okay, comparative politics has influenced many of the countries. More recently, modern social scientists has increased our power to observe and compare systematically empirical world of facts. Science has increased our power to observe and compare systematically empirical world of facts, okay, around us, and to subject many of these facts and processes to qualitative measurement and logical and mathematical analysis. Okay. At the same time, the behavioral science have given us a good deal of new and partly varied information as to how people think, feel, perceive, and act individually and in a group. Okay, before we attempt to define comparative politics, we should first define the term comparative and then politics. Okay, by comparison, one can see patterns of activity taken by different regimes, analysis differing ideologies and processes, and decision making, and examine propositions about the importance of certain characteristics, under study the relationship between classes of data. Comparison allows systematic empirical testing of generalizations used to order diverse data. By comparison, one may observe patterns, similarities, and differences. Okay, the story of the then we discuss about politics. The story of world politics began the polis, the city state, okay, community of ancient Greeks, and the important philosopher of Greeks are Plato, Aristotle, and many other comparison regarding politics as the affair of polis. Okay, politics is therefore only one of the several social activities of man. The essence of it said to lie in fundamental freedom of man in society to master his own face by political means. Politics is thus the people through which man orders the society in which he lives according to his political ideas about the ends of man. Okay, the study of politics is concerned with the description and analysis of manner in which power is obtained, exercised, and controlled, the purposes of which it is used, the manner in which decisions are made, and the context in which those decisions take place. Politics also means striving to share power or striving to influence the distributions of power, okay, between the authorities. Okay, either among states or among groups, among authorities within a state. We may conclude by saying that politics deals with power. There is a close link between power and authority, okay, and also legitimacy. Then comparative politics is concerned with behavior, institutions, process, ideas, and values present in more than one country. It searches for those regularities and patterns, those similarities and differences between more than one nation state that helps clarify the balance of power and the nature of society. a broad range of political activity, including governments and their institutions, as well as other forms of organization not directly related to national government. For example, tribes, communities, associations, trade unions, etc. Comparative politics, like political science, relate both to theory and method. Okay, the theory refers to set of systematic related generalizations, and method is a procedure or process that involves the techniques or tools utilized in inquiring and for examining, teaching, testing, and evaluating theory. Okay, comparative politics is also concerned with the norms, basic beliefs, and values underlying political activity. The field of comparative politics involves the systematic and comparative study of nations and their political system. In practice, the comparative politics do the first to compare mean that similarities and differences are described. Comparative politics describe the real world, and building on the description establishes classifications and typologies. For example, we classify different types of electoral system. Okay, similarities and differences are explained there. Why did social revolutions take place in France and Russia but not in Germany and Japan? Okay, why is electoral turnout in the USA and Switzerland so much lower than in any other democracy? Okay, USA, there is a practice of democratic form of government, and in India there is also practice of democratic form of government. Um, then we little bit discuss about growth of comparative politics. The study of comparative politics become highly significant in the 1950s. Okay, in the year 1950s, when a good number of leading American political scientists sought to transform the field of politics by taking the study of this subject from foreign to comparative political phenomena, and from the study of the government to study of political system. However, the historical development of this subject may be roughly put into three phases, that is unsophisticated, sophisticated, and increasingly sophisticated. Okay, the contribution made to the study of politics by great figures like Aristotle, Machiavelli, Bryce, Weber, and then Max Weber belongs to the first phase, who simply utilize the comparative politics for the primary purposes of better understanding the working of the political organizations. These writers employed what was called the comparative method, that aimed through the study of existing politics or those definite body of material forms, which the investigators, by selections, comparisons, and eliminations, may discover the ideal types and progressive forces of political history. Okay, then we little bit discuss about its historical overview. Okay, the nature and scope of comparative politics have varied according to changes which have occurring historical in its subject matter. Okay, the subject matter of comparative politics has been determined both by the geographical space, which has contributed its field, as well as dominant ideas concerning social reality and change, which shape the approaches to comparative studies. Likewise, at different historical prospects, the thrust or the primary concern of the studies keep changing. So, first we discuss about the origin of comparative study in politics. Okay, of politics. Comparative politics has a long intellectual phases going back to Aristotle and continue by the thinkers like Machiavelli. Okay, John Locke, Max Weber, they are also the profounder of, or they are also the supporters of comparative politics. In its earliest incarnations, the comparative study of politics comes to use or come to us in the form of studies done by the Greek philosopher, as I already discussed. Greek philosopher, who are those Greek philosophers like Plato, Aristotle? They are the Greek philosophers. Aristotle studies the constitutions of 150 states, okay, and classified them into a typology of regimes. His classifications was presented in terms of both descriptive and normative categories. That is, he is not only described and classified regime and political system in terms of their types. Okay, that is example like democracy, aristocracy, monarchy, etc. He also distinguishes them on the basis of certain norms of good governance. On the basis of this comparison, he divided regimes into good and bad, ideal and perverted. These Aristotelian categories were acknowledged and taken up by Romans such as Polybius and Cicero, who considered them in formal and legalistic terms. Concerns with comparative study of regime types mm, reappeared in the 15th century with Machiavelli, who compared different types of principalities and republics to arrive the most successful way to govern. Um, Successful way to govern republics to arrive the most successful way to govern them. Okay, then its next phase is the late 19th and early 18th century. Okay, the preoccupations with philosophical and speculative questions concerning the good order or the ideal state and the use in the process of abstract and normative vocabulary persisted in comparative studies of the late 19th and early 20th century. This was a period when liberalism was the reigning ideology and European countries were gradually advancing towards to liberty of the individual. It says about laissez-faire theory. Okay. The laissez-faire theory means least interference of the state, least interference in of the state by enjoying individual freedom. Okay, the rest of the world of Asia, Africa, Latin America were either European colonies or under their sphere of influence as ex-colonials. Comparative studies taken up during this period, for instance, James Bryce, Modern Democracies, Herman Finger, Theory of Practice and Modern Government, and Charles, Constitutional Government and Democracy. Robert Mitchell's political parties were largely concerned with a comparative study of institutions, the distributions of power, and the relationship between the different layers of government. These studies were Eurocentric, that is, confined to the study of institutions, governments, and regime type in European countries. Mm, European countries like Britain, France, and Germany. It may thus be said that these studies were in fact not genuinely comparative in the sense that they excluded from their analysis a large number of countries. Any generalizations derived from a study confined to a few countries could not legitimately claim having validity for the rest of the world. It may be emphasized here that exclusion of the rest of the world was symptomatic of the dominance of Europe in world politics. All contemporary history had Europe at its center. Then this is the page of 19th and starting of 20th century. Then next page is the Second World War and after. Okay, in the 1930s, the political and economic situation of the world changed. The Bolshevik Revolution in Russia in 1970s brought into world socialism as an ideology of the oppressed and as a critical alternative to Western liberalism and capitalism. With the end of the Second World War, a number of significant developments had taken place, including the declining of European hegemony, the emergence and entrenchment of United States of America as the new hegemon in world politics and economy, and the fabrications of world into two ideological camps, that is capitalism and socialism. Okay, the majority of the rest of the world had, by the time the Second World War ended, liberated itself from European imperialism. For a period after decolonizations, the nations of development, modernizations, nation building, state building, etc., evicted a degree of legitimacy and even popularity, a national slogan. Sorry. Okay. So just a minute. Of symptomatic among new ruling elite of Asia, America, and Latin America, quite a number of newly independent countries made a conscious decision to distance themselves from both the power blocks, remaining non-aligned to either. A number of them evolved their own specific path of development akin to the socialist, as in the case of Ujama in Tanzania, and the mixed economy model in India, which was a blend of capitalism and socialism. This is one phase. Then another phase of historical evolutions of comparative politics is like its concept of its emergence during the period of post behavioralist approach. Okay, these are the various phases through which comparative politics evolve or emergence. Okay, then let's we discuss about some features or characteristics of comparative politics. You maybe note down the what are the different features, sorry, nature and scope of comparative politics. In the field of comparative politics, the term politics has three connotations, that is, or three concept, that is political activity, political process, and political power. Political activity consists of the efforts by which conditions of conflicts are created and resolved in a way pertaining of the interest of the people as far as possible, who place their path in the struggle for power. The reductions of tensions of the resolutions of conflicts naturally take place through the operations of permanent mechanism of tension reductions, as well as from time to time by the introductions of further reserve mechanism designed to reduce the amount of tensions and conflicts is in emergencies. If politics means the authoritative allocations of values, some measures of conflict is bound to arise between values as described by the people and values as held by the man in power. Just a minute. Sorry for the disturbances. So let's continue about the nature and scope of comparative politics. Politics not only talk about political activity, it also implies a train activity, that is, efforts directed towards creating the conditions of tensions and having their resolutions until the point of spontaneous unanimity is achieved. Political activity emanates from a situations of a form of human behavior, okay, in which the interest of persons, more than one class of interest for the purposes of having an allocations of binding values in their respective favors. Okay. Political process is an extension of the sense of political activity. Here, the case of all those agencies figures in that have their role in the decisions making process. The study of politics is thus broadened so as to include ever non-state agencies. A study of the way of group and associations exercise power. They have their internal governments to deal with their internal conflicts and tensions. What is particularly important for our purposes is that these non-state associations influences the government of the country for the sake of for protecting and promoting their specific interest. Thus, the three courses is a very sharp process of interaction between groups inner is and between the groups and the government of the country. Participate in policy formulation by the government or become the government is the political process. Since comparative politics includes all that comes within the scope of political activity and political process, it is said to down the national government among whole universe of partial government which exists in any community. Okay. Since comparative politics include all those within the scope of political activity and political activity and political process. So finally, the scope of comparative politics includes the subject of political power. Okay. The term power has been defined by different writers in different way. For instance, while from Karl, he defined political powers as like it is a certain kind of human relationship. Power is a certain kind of human relationship. Okay. Then another profounder describe it is the capacity of an individual or a group of individual to modify the conduct of others individual or group in the manner which he desired. Then referring to role of power in the matter of decision making, Laswell says the making of decisions is an interpersonal process. The politics which other persons are to pursue are what is decided upon. Power as participations in the making of decision in an interpersonal relationship. Then politics thus cannot a special case in the exercise of power, an exercise of power or an exercise in the attempt to change the conduct of others in one's own directions. Okay. It is the study of the subject of politics from the standpoint of power that was widen the scope of comparative politics so as to include a study of the infrastructure of the political system. It is on account of this that politics cannot be studied properly without identifying the ruling classes or the governing or non-governing elites and measures their respective roles. Politics is functions by and large within groups through as we have seen earlier. However, important aspects of politics left out. The subject of authority becomes the handmaid of power. The rulers in a democratic system try to justify their authority by means of having the little of consensus. Those of a totalitarian system resort to the marked use of power for achieving the superficial title of legitimacy. Thus, it becomes a celebrated principles of comparative politics where consensus is weak or concern tend to be strong, and vice versa. It is on account of these important connotations that the term politics has come to have its peculiar definitions in the realm of comparative politics. Okay, the result is that it is not merely a study of the state and government, it is a study of the exercise of power. Okay, exercise of power by whom? By the authority. The disciplines of comparative politics include three different traditions. The first tradition is oriented towards the study of single countries. This reflects the understanding of comparative politics in its formative years in the US, where it mainly means the study of political system outside the US, often is isolations from one another and moving title. If any comparison for long comparative politics, especially in the Anglo-Saxon world, has meant the study of foreign countries. The second traditions is methodological and is principally concerned with establishing rule and standards of comparative analysis. These traditions address the questions of how comparative analysis should be carried out in order to enhance their potential for the descriptive accumulations of comparative information explained, okay, and information and predictions. This stand is concerned with rigorous conceptual, logical, and statistical technique of analyzing, involving also issues of measurement and case selections. The third traditions of comparative politics is analytical, in that it combines empirical substance and methods. The body of literature in this tradition is primarily concerned with the identifications and explanations of different and similarities between countries and their institutions, actors, and processes through systematic comparison uses cases of a common phenomena. Okay, its principles goals is to be explanatory. Okay, it aims to be beyond merely ideographic descriptions and ultimately aspirations to arrive at the identifications of law like explanations. Though comparison researchers control, test, verify, and falsify whether associations and causal relationship between variables hold true, important conclusions derived from the identifications of shared properties among the cases were based on large n or small n research designs which mostly similar to different cases, and using either qualitative or quantitative data or logical or statistical techniques for testing the empirical validity of hypotheses. This tradition ultimately aims at causal explanations. So these are the concept of nature and scope of comparative politics. Now we discuss about different characteristics of comparative politics. What are the different characteristics of comparative politics? Its first characteristics is analytical and investigations. Okay, then second characteristics is study of infrastructure. Study of infrastructures deals with the study of comparative politics is not confined to the formal structures of government, as was the trend with the traditional political scientists. If instead of government the term political system is used, naturally it becomes a part of the entire social system, and the input output process include all those forces of environment that have their effect on decision making process. This is the study of infrastructure. First characteristics is analytical and empirical investigations. As we already discussed, what is analytical and empirical discussions, empirical investigations. Then study of infrastructure. Then third characteristics is it give emphasis on the study of developing societies. Okay, what has added more to the significance of the study of comparative politics is the emphasis of more writers on the politics of developed areas. Okay, then four characteristics is focused on interdisciplinary approach. What is interdisciplinary approach? What has really enriched the field of comparative politics, and at the same time made it a complex subject, is the focus on interdisciplinary study. Then its next characteristics is value free political theory. Finally, the subject of political science has lost its normative aspect and assumed empirical dimensions in the sphere of comparative politics. The result is that value-free political theory has replaced value-laden political theory. Okay, then we made comparison between comparative government and comparative politics. What is comparative government and what is comparative politics? Okay, the study of comparative government and comparative politics are closely linked with each other. Finner, however, points out four meaning of the term government. It denotes activity or process of governing, and the extent to which it exercises control over others indicates the state of affairs in which that activity or process is to found. Tells about the people who are changing with the study of governing, and denotes the manners, methods, or system by which a particular society is governed. Government is thus a standardized arrangement for taking decisions which affect the whole group, and the need of government arises as it is essential for territorial associations to adopt a common policy, and as in many cases rival bodies of members and associations have has tried to establish a link between government and the politics. There is now a great stress in both on informal political process and political institutions of the state. That is why Freeman points out that comparative politics is nothing else but comparative analysis of various forms of government and diverse political institutions. Then Jean Bondel also disagree with the view and says that comparative governments can be defined as the study of patterns of national governments in the contemporary world. Although the two terms comparative politics and comparative governments are used loosely and interchangeably. Okay, that is a point of distinctions between the two. While the latter conveys a comparative study of different political system with special emphasis on their institutions and functions, the former has a broader concept or broader scope, as so as to cover all that comes within the preview of the former, and in addition to that, all else that may be designated as the study of politics. In other words, the scope of comparative politics is wider than of comparative government. That means comparative politics is much wider than the comparative government. Okay, this is the simple again some more point about difference between comparative government and comparative politics is the study of comparative government is much limited than that of comparative politics. Comparative government comprises the study of states, okay, their institutions and functions. It does not take into account of the non-governmental institutions and is also non-concerned with their functions. But comparative politics is concerned with politics power relationship wherever they occur. Hence, its jurisdiction is not limited to the state only. Comparative politics is therefore not concerned only with the comparative study of the state and its institutions and process, but it also deals with non-state political contexts such as leadership, political socializations, resolutions of political conflict, bargaining, communication, decision making, etc. Okay, so these are the basic differences between comparative government and comparative politics. Okay, then we discuss about some its utilities. What are the different utilities of comparative politics? Its first utility is it enables us to understand similarities and differences between political system. Then second utility is knowledge regarding contextual element of different political system. And then third one, close interrelations of different countries call for comparative study. Then fourth one, scientific and systematic study. Then study of different countries call for comparative study. Then next one is theory generalizations is possible in comparative politics. Then revalidifications of existing theories. Then it is a value free study. Then for last one is widen the scope of the study. So these are the various utility of comparative government and politics. Beside utilities, the comparative government and politics also has some criticism. What are the criticisms? Is first criticism is there is the problem of a standard and precise definitions of various important concepts and terms. Leading writers on these subjects make use of different concepts according to their specialized knowledge with different uh, mm, with different concept. Okay, many political terms used in the field of comparative politics not only suffered from ambiguity, they are also used as political rhetoric that create the fear of negligence. Okay, then serious difficulties are encountered in collecting information and data about the political system and other non-state institutions having their definite connections, whether visible or invisible, with the departments of a political organizations. Then political behavior is not necessarily conducted on a rational basis or on scientific principles, thereby rendering a scientific study more difficult. A value-free political science become a source of problem for one who has normative approach or who has adopted normative approach. Okay, this is the factor of the complexity of political system and political behavior. Then the roles of that individuals play in the politics of their country cannot be subjected to uniform rules or evolved by the student of comparative politics. So these are the some basic criticisms which relate to comparative politics. Okay, our first unit is over. Then we go to our second unit that's discuss about the different methods used in comparative politics. What are the different methods used in comparative politics? Comparative, as comparative politics is a vast phenomena, so its methods also include very different perspectives. That means it include different type of method to understand comparative politics. So let discuss one by one what are the different methods it follows. You may also write down some questions also. Lastly, we also discuss about some questions relating to comparative politics, expected questions relating to comparative politics. Okay, so Before we begin studying the comparative method, let us first see what exactly a method is. What exactly the meaning of method? Okay, and why it is considered so important. Why method is to be a very important concept. Okay, method as a effective way of accomplishing something with relative else. A piece of furniture, for example, comes with a manual guiding or through the various steps to set it up. That means what are the procedures or what are the steps through which we can find out a definite aim or definite objectives. That is the method is the that procedure. Method means a step or the procedures through which we can achieve our destinations, we can achieve our goal. Okay. The concept and techniques will have to be used in specific ways to know more about, understand or explain in a particular phenomena. Thus it may be said that the organizations of way of applications of specific concept to data is method. Of course the manner of collections of data itself will have to be worked out. The concept which are to be applied or studied will have to be thought out. All these even eventually have to be organized so that nature of the data and the manner in which it is collected and the applications of the concept is done in a way that we are able to study with a degree of perception that what we want to study. In a scientific inquiry, much emphasis is placed on precision and or exactness of the method. Social sciences, however, owing to the nature of their subject matter, have to link with methods which come close to the accuracy of scientific experiment in laboratories or other controlled conditions. Okay, this is the conceptual meaning of method. Then the comparative method, the comparative method means why we called it comparative method. Comparative method has a seen as studying similarities and differences as the basis for developing a grounded theory, testing hypotheses. Hypothesis means pre-assumptions. Okay, in inferring causality and producing reliable generalizations. Many social scientists believe that research should be scientifically organized. The comparative method, they believe, offer them the best means to conduct scientific research, that is research characterized by precision, validity, reliability and verifiability and some amount of predictability. The American political scientist James Coleman, for example, often reminded his students, you cannot be scientific if you are not comparing. When we comparing is a thing to another things, that include the concept of scientific method. Okay, whereas in physical science comparison can be done in laboratories under carefully controlled conditions. Precise experimentations in social sciences under conditions which applicable laboratory conditions is not possible. If the president and the number of political parties, she or he cannot instruct a government to change its electoral system, nor order people to behave in a particular way to test his hypothesis, nor can he replicate a social or political phenomena in a laboratory where test can be controlled. Okay, that means social sciences testing or to social sciences hypothesis cannot be include laboratory concept or laboratory system. Okay, then what is integrative thinking? While some social scientists use the comparative method to develop a scientific inquiry, for others, however, thinking with comparison is an integral part of analyzing specific social and political phenomena. That is integrative thinking. Okay, then what we discuss about After indicative thinking, we discuss about different methods of comparison. First method is experimental method. Although the experimental method has limited application in social sciences, it provides the model on which many comparatives aspire to base their studies. Simply put, the experimental method aims to establish a causal relationship between two conditions. In other words, the objective of the experiment is to establish that one condition leads to the other or influences the other in a particular way. Okay, that is experimental method. Then next method is case study method. A case study, as the name suggested, focus on a depth study of a single case. When we study about a single case, that is called case study method. Now, in that sense, while the method itself is not strictly comparative, it provides the data which can become the basis of general observations. These observations may be used to make comparison with other cases and to offer general explanation. Case studies, however, may in a disappropriation manner emphasize distinctiveness or what are called deviant or usual cases. Okay, there might be a tendency, for example, among comparativists to explore questions like why United States of America does not have a socialistic party rather than a explore why Sweden, along with more Western democracy, has one. Okay, that means when we study about a case, that is a case or a situation, that include case study method. Experimental methods, on the other hand, when we made some experiment on it, that include experimental method. Experimental method is always scientific. Scientific means that believe in sense experience. Okay, the sense experience, that is include touch, smell. These are the basic criteria through which we can analyze about the what is scientific or experimental method. Okay, then we discuss about statistical method. The statistical method uses categories and variables which are quantifiable or can be represented by number of variables. Turnout, okay, urbanizations, population growth. It also offers unique opportunities to study the effects or relationship of a number of variables simultaneously. It has the advantages of presenting precise data in a compact and in visually effective manner so that similarities and dissimilarities are visible through numerical representation. The fact that a number of variables can be studied together also give the unique opportunity to look for complex explanations in terms of a relationship. The use of the statistical method also helps explain and compare long-term trends and patterns and offers predictions on future trends. Okay, study, for example, of the relationship of age and political participations can be made through an analysis of statistical table or voter turnout and age categories. Okay, then focused comparison. What is focused comparison method? These studies take up a small number of countries, often just two, and concentrate frequently on particular aspects of the country's politics rather than on all aspects. A comparative study of public policies in different countries has successfully been undertaken by this method. Lipset distinguished two kinds of binary and repeated comparison, the implicit and explicit. In the implicit binary comparison, the investigator's own country, as in the case of documentary studies America, may serve as the reference. Explicit paired comparisons have two clear cases for comparison. The two countries may be studied with respect of their specific aspects, example, policy of populations control in India and China, or in their entirely example with respect to the process of modernizations. The latter may, however, lead to parallel study of two cases, leaving little scope for a study of relationship. Then last next method is historical method. The historical method can be distinguished from other method that it looks for casual explanations which are historically sensitive. Eric Wolf emphasizes that any study which seeks to understand societies and cause of human action could not merely seek technical solution to problems stated in technical terms. The important thing was to restore to an analytical history which searched out the causes of the present in the past. Okay, such an analytical history could not be developed out of the study of a single culture or nation, a single culture area, or even a single continue at one period of time, but from a study of contract, interactions, and interconnections among human populations and customs. Okay, this is all about historical method. Historical method means when we study something by following our history or historical past, that is called historical method. That means we go through our past and we in the past what are the things compare, how government and politics compare in past historical process, we follow that system, that include historical method. Okay, so this is all about our different methods to understand comparative politics. Then its first question is analyze the strength, analyze the strength and weakness of the comparative method. Analyze the strength and weakness of the comparative method. The next question is, what is the usefulness? What is the usefulness of a comparative study of politics? What is the usefulness of a comparative study of politics? The next question is, what are the features? What are the features that determine what are the features that determine the nature and scope of comparative politics? The next question is, examine the various methods of comparative political analysis. These are the some questions relating to your unit 1 and unit 2. Then our unit 1 and unit 2 discussion is over. If you have any doubt, then you can ask me. Viewers, if you have any doubt, then you can ask me. No doubt? Okay, then thank you. Okay, viewers. As we have left 2 minutes, so we discuss about some important definitions of comparative politics. You may note down the definitions. Okay, comparative politics is tendency of the forms of public organizations, their properties, their objectives, and their methods. This definition is called by M.G. Smith. Okay, once again, I discuss about it. Comparative politics is tendency of the forms of political organizations, their properties, correlations, variations, and modes of change by M.G. Smith. Okay, this is the one most important definitions of comparative politics. Okay, so you may note down another some important definitions regarding comparative politics. Generally, comparative politics, generally it is seems that various scholars use the concept of comparative politics, comparative government, or comparative constitutions, comparative political systems, etc. interchangeably, whereas these concepts are vastly different from each other. Okay, according to, you may note down this another important, one of the most important definitions of comparative politics given by Edward Freeman. According to Edward Freeman, comparative politics is the comparative analysis of the comparative politics is the comparative analysis of the various forms of governments and diverse political institutions. Again, I dictate according to Edward Freeman, comparative politics is the comparative analysis of the various form of government. When we made analysis between different type of government, that include comparative government. That means when we compare one government with to another government, that is called comparative government and its diverse political institutions. Okay, each country has its own political institutions. Okay, political institutions also differ from country to country. Okay, some country follow democratic institutions, some country follow republic institutions. So institutions vary from country to country. So comparative politics include comparative between various government and various political institutions. Okay, then according to Mitchell Kurtz, another important definition, comparative politics is concerned with significant regularities. Comparative politics is concerned with significant regularities, similarities, and differences in the working of political institutions and in political behavior. According to Mitchell Curtis, comparative politics is concerned with significant regularities, similarities, and differences in the working of political institutions and in political behavior. Okay, these are the most important. These are the three most important definitions of comparative governments and politics. Okay, you may write down the definitions. Okay, then briefly we again analyze some differences between, again I make some distinctions between what is the difference between comparative government and comparative politics. The subject of comparative government is older than the subject of comparative politics. Okay, that means comparative government is older concept and comparative politics is a new concept. Okay, then next one is differences regarding the nature of the study. That means comparative government's nature is different, comparative politics nature is different. Okay, from the difference with regard to tools of study, then differences with regard to relations of values. Okay, then differences in their scope, there also we can found differences. Then differences about the study of infrastructure, Then the study of comparative government is explanatory, whereas the study of comparative politics is analytical. Okay. Then differences with regard to usefulness. Okay. Then differences regarding purposes. Purposes of comparative politics is different, and purposes of comparative government is also different. So these are the some basic differences between comparative government and politics, comparative politics used by the different thinker. Okay, so you also may note down these differences. Okay. Okay, Divas, if you have some doubts you can ask me. Okay, then thank you.